My name is Daniel Canfield, and I'll be telling you about what I learned about the 1997 Thailand financial crisis. This was an economic crash after the economy was booming for several years, and it came with many large negative effects on the culture and the society. I'm going to be telling you first about the root causes, the background for how this happened. Next, I'll be telling you about the government policies, how the government responded to try to save the country and instill it back to its former glory, back to prosperity. And then lastly, I'm going to be telling you about the schools of thought behind those policies and how they worked and how they did not work. So first, the root causes. First of all, it was the mismanagement of the private banks in Thailand that led to the initial crash. So what was happening was investors were making a large sum of money by investing in the banks in Thailand through foreign currency. So what was happening was the Thailand economy was booming so much and they were thriving so much that the banks were lending out money endlessly, and investors would take out loans from a bank in a different country and then they would invest it, and then they would end up making more money because the interest rate of the different country would allow them to make more money by investing in the lower interest rate in Thailand. And this led to a lack of currency reserves. So the currency reserves, basically Thailand just ran out of money. They ran out of their own currency because they didn't have enough. They were lending out money that they didn't have because they had so much foreign currency that they lost track of how much money they actually had. And this led to the unpegging of the currency to the US dollar. So one of the reasons that the economy was thriving so much was because they pegged their currency to the US dollar, and they were continually exchanging, and the economy was working well with that, of course, until the crash. Now I'm going to be telling you about the policies and the government responses to the crash in 1997. Like I said, they had to unpeg the baht, which is the currency in Thailand. They unpegged the baht from the US dollar. After this, the IMF had to step in. The International Monetary Fund was a culmination of all of different countries that were able to help Thailand in this time of crisis. The next thing that they did was targeting inflation. So if you think about it, recession and inflation are kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. So if you're having a recession, what you'd want to do is you'd want to target the inflation to get the economy back where it's supposed to be. And this was a form of monetary policy. And then lastly, after this, Fatskin used his expansionary fiscal policy in 2001 to revive the economy. This was, like I said, fiscal policy. The government was spending. He was choosing to spend in order to get the economy back to where it was previously before the crash. So now I'm going to talk about how they did, the schools of thought. So the government didn't really monitor as much as they could have leading up to the crash. As we learned, one of the things that we learned is that the Federal Reserve sets reserve requirements on the banks to have a certain amount of reserves so that they don't fail. And Thailand didn't do this as much as they could have. If they would have done that, then they could have kept from all the banks failing and running out of money. So instead they chose the classical philosophy, which is just take your hands off, don't really do anything, just let everyone trade how they want to. But as you can see, that did not quite work as it led to the crash. Next, monetary policy. This included the floating of the currency. So the floating of the currency was was unpegging it from the US dollar. And inflation targeting was a part of this monetary policy, as I stated previously. And this didn't quite work because it had a large lag effect and people weren't getting the financial help that they needed. They were unemployed, distraught, lost their jobs. This led to the election of Thatskin in 2001. And as I said previously, he chose to implement the fiscal policy to expand the government. So he used government spending to expand over the next few years after he was elected. And this is the school of thought of Keynes. He believed that the government should be influential in expanding the government, expanding the culture through expansionary fiscal policy. So this would happen. This worked well as it used the multiplier effect to expand the consumption. In conclusion, I have told you about the Thailand financial crisis in 1997. I told you about the root causes, the policy responses, and the schools of thought, how they did, and how they did well and how they did not quite well. Now that we look back on the Thailand financial crisis in 1997, economists can study this and learn what